Talmud are still present. The Septuagint is a complete Christian book that was redone and edited to conform to Matthew. So Matthew wasn't quoting the Septuagint. Listen very carefully. The Septuagint was quoting Matthew. Is that what I'm saying?
Yes, I do. So let me just to paraphrase what you're saying. So you're saying that the prophets and the writings were not part of the original LXX.
Of course not. And this, by the way, is not contended. We have the letter of Aristides, which is very ancient, prior to Christianity. Jerome said, everybody says it. If you open a Christian Septuagint, this is very important. What I am telling you now, it is not the best. There is no normal scholar anywhere that says that those rabbis translated. We have 1,000 sources for this. Josephus discusses it. I bring all the sources down. This is not contended. It only is contended by people who know nothing, who are completely ignorant. Okay, so that's what I want. I'm actually walking to my head, but I'm going to keep talking because I don't know what the situation is.
Okay.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
It was very critical. What I have just said to you, this is not contended. There are a million things that are contended. This is not one of them. Thank you. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
I'm not telling you anything. If you open any introduction to Septuagint, say the original Septuagint, the 5 books of Moses. What comes after that is a whole hodgepodge of Greek translations. But what happened was they used the term Septuagint, and they then called everything the Septuagint. That means it became Kleenex. It became a generic term.
Right.
But that's not what the Septuagint wasn't translated by the 70, and that's what Septuagint means.
Right.
So that's what's happening now. Normally, on the normal thing, if I'm just blowing my nose, I really don't care if it's a Kleenex or if it's made by Walgreens. But now it matters.
Right.
Do you understand?
Yes, Rabbi, please.
The deeper question is, why would God be quoting from Greek? I forgot how to speak Hebrew?
Okay, Rabbi, please. Also, if I can squeeze this out of you too, please touch base on the virgin birth.
Go ahead. I'm right with you. Got to get me a specific question.
Okay, specific question is, I've heard that the first century believers never even believed in a virgin birth. That was a concept developed later.
It's not first century. That means we already see it at the end of the first century. We see the Matthew. You'll see I have a whole chapter on this, and that is the 2 Christmas stories in volume 1. And that is, that means Mark knows nothing about a virgin birth, and that's the earliest of the Gospels chronological. Paul's early writings are all of Paul's writings are in the 50s. The first time we are introduced to a virgin birth is around the year 85, about 15 years after Mark. At that point, the virgin birth enters. He hasn't said why it enters at that stage. And then about the year 50, Jews are no longer becoming Christians. It's done. It's all Gentiles. And you can see that in Paul's writings. It's all about arguing. What is Paul doing in all his letters? He's writing and complaining about how people are influencing Gentile believers. You understand?
Right.
So therefore, we can see clearly. And by that point, if you want to talk to people, everyone was born a virgin. Romulus was born a virgin. You can't. That's just the way you talk to people. You understand? You have to be born a virgin.
Yes.
Because if you understand, not born a virgin, what does Pontifex Maximus mean? What does that mean?
I don't know.
This Maximus means the high priest. Every single emperor in Rome wanted to be called that. That's why the Pope is called the Pontiff.
Okay.
That's all it is.
Interesting.
That means that's just a virgin birth that had to be on your CV. If you have a virgin birth on your CV, then you might as well go home.
Okay.
I'm going to turn off the volume, the picture. Go ahead, next question.
Okay, next question. Passover. Oh, I'm sorry, wait. I've got a different question. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. I was just going to really say, I've never met a Christian who, they see JC as God's son, and I've never met one who says that JC's going to have children later. Is there anything in the Tanakh that says the Messiah in the end times that redeems Israel is going to actually have children in the Davidic line will be...
Yes, of course. It says it openly. It says it openly. Remember, but Messiah is not open Messiah. He's called the Prince. Okay? So therefore, what you want to do is, I'm going to show off the picture only to get better volume for you. Okay? So listen carefully.
Okay.
You can still hear me, right?
I can still see your pretty face too. Don't worry.
You're a very lucky man, and your conditions to get the face. So listen, very carefully. It's in Ezekiel chapter 46, verse 16 and 17. Here we have the prince who's the Messiah. It says specifically he has children, and you look it up for yourself. Okay, let's go on to the next question. I mean, and by the way, in Ezekiel 45, verse 20, 21, and 22, the Messiah is the prince, and he's bringing sin sacrifice on behalf of himself and the people of Israel, and he's bringing a Passover lamb. The Hebrew says impossible. Why did the Messiah bring a sin offering? Look it up. And why is he doing it? For unintentional sins. So look at 46, verse 16, 17. It actually explains to us how the land is divided up with the Messiah's children.
Awesome. Okay, another question?
Yes. How much effect did Eusebius have on the writing of this, since he was Constantine's personal historian?
On the writings of what?
Writings of the New Testament.
We don't know. We don't know, but it is at that stage. The Testament is still very, very fluid, and it is still at that stage where there are many. Here's the key: by the time Eusebius is writing in 324, that's when he writes his history. Now this is key. In a moment, I'm going to give my boarding pass to the lady, so I'm going to cut off for just a second. At the stage of the 4th century, there's still variances, tremendous variances, but the big deal at that stage is not so much adding and taking on text. The only thing Eusebius is going to do is he's going to insert Jesus into Josephus. He's going to be the guy who does that. The thing about, you see in Josephus, in Antiquities 1833, all that stuff, that he puts it in. No one ever mentions it before, no one ever heard it. Hang on 1 second.
Okay. Okay.
1 second.
No problem.
Now, wait.
Sure.
Now, here's the key. Here's a very key point. The key fight in the 4th century was not over playing the text, but which book should be in the New Testament. And this is the big fight. The big fight is Hebrews called the Torah Hebrews or not? Is Revelation a bunch of nonsense or not? Meaning it was written by John. Now we know that, and here's a critical point, the book of Revelation says it's written by John, but it doesn't say which John, okay? So there's great question about that. There's big question about the book of James, the book of Jude, huge questions on it. Moreover, the other books, the Epistle of Barnabas, the Epistle of Barnabas is huge. The Gospel of Peter, so that was the fight. The fight really in the 4th century is which book should be included and excluded. The first person who is going to say, this is it, the New Testament is these 27 books. The first person to ever make this point is a man named Irenaeus. Not Irenaeus, excuse me. Is a man named,
Gamaliel.
Not Irenaeus, the Bishop of Alexandria, 367. His name escapes me, but he's the famous guy. It's just the name that's shot out of my head.
Okay.
But anyways, in 367, he's the one.
He's the reason
who fought. He was a deacon. 325. In 325, he fought for the Trinity. He's the one who's going to say these are the books, and so that's it. So the argument that by the time in the 4th century, the big issue was what's in, what's out, what's in the canon, what's not. And that's the big fight. We, in fact, have very old manuscripts of the New Testament that have the Epistle of Barnabas in it, very famous ones. The Clement, is that in, is that out? That's the war.
Okay.
The war is not a reverse here, reverse there. People are too illiterate for that. You know, that wasn't the issue anymore.
Okay, Rabbi, I got another question for you.
The issue was... Go ahead.
Okay.
Can you hear me okay?
The name of the person is Athanasius, by the way. Athanasius.
That's okay. Okay, the next speaker has a question for you. She's going to make sure you can hear her, okay?
How do you support the validity of the oral laws?
I have a whole chapter on that, sweetheart. You have to go through this chapter. But I will say...
We can talk about that also when we're done, because we've got a lot of shared information too.
There's a huge chapter on that, this volume 1, but I'm not trying to sell you a book, I'm just explaining to you, because it's very elaborate. You have to understand that all Christians follow both. Let me explain what I mean. Why are there no vowels or is scroll? Why are there no vowels? Why?
They didn't need them.
Multiple interpretations from the text?
The vowels were invented in the early Middle Ages, okay? By Masoretes. It is not from God. Meaning, until that point, it was known orally what vowels go on. The Hebrew letters on the consonants. Until that point, it was a oral. Masorah means oral, what is passed down, tradition. That's all it means. Which means, listen carefully, I'll tell you something that will blow your frontal lobe out of your head. Until the Middle Ages, in Dead Sea Scrolls, there's no vowels, right? So what's going on here? The whole vowel system of the oral Torah, all of it is oral Torah. Do you know that the Christian Bibles follow it 100% of the time? Do you know that? What happens if suddenly you read Hebrew, right? What happens if I change vowels? What happens? What happens to the meaning of the words?
Changes the meaning of the words.
Of course, that's like in English. I could change the putting of a vowel, put another vowel, to a whole new word. When I change the vowel, how does it sound? Change it. Do you know that every Christian Bible relies on our oral law? So it's the stupidest thing in the world. Now, it happens to be that in the New Testament, don't question the oral law. If you did, they would look at you like you're out of your mind, you had like a horn coming out of your head. In fact, this will blow your head off, and I go through this. You can't even understand the New Testament without the oral law.
Right.
That's the point.
Right.
That means if all the art is over the oral law, you listen very carefully. When Jesus says, if you can circumcise a boy, that means you can heal only a small limb of a person. How much so you can do the whole body? Let me ask you a question. Can any Christian explain to me what that means? What is the point? What is the point? Why is there a problem circumcising a baby on Shabbos? And what permission is there in the oral law? The whole New Testament makes no sense. All these arguments, if you could save the sheep from a pit on Shabbos, so how much more can you save a person? Can anyone explain that to me about the oral law? It doesn't make sense. It's a great story, but yes, but explain to me, what's the point? The point is, Jesus is actually trying to outcome his Pharisees. Now, the stories are completely right? Because there's no prohibition of healing people on Shabbos. That's no way. Also, it's a complete fiction from A to Z.
Okay.
Every Shabbos, we make a mishnah to heal people. There is that means no Pharisee would have gotten upset with Jesus for healing people.
That's a good point. I never thought of that.
Shabbos. So what exactly Pharisees upset about? You heal people on Shabbos? I do it every Shabbos. I do healing, and in every synagogue we do. That's the time doing the Shabbos. So the story is fiction, absolute fiction.
Man.
But they're using rabbinic maxims in order to mold, shape, and massage perfections. It's complete nonsense.
Okay, Rabbi, quick. Sorry.
Why would the Pharisees care to heal someone? Go ahead, next.
Oh, okay. Next question, just real quickly. Can you please touch upon? Hold on. I totally forgot what I was going to ask him. I need a glass of wine. That'll help.
What's his opinion on the Noahide community right now?
Okay. Yeah. What is your opinion on the Noahide community right now?
Well, my opinion doesn't matter. It's Republican. The Noahide movement is the oldest religion in the world. That's the answer.
Right.
It means that people who are following the Hashem. It's not.
I remember.
However, this is a mistake some make is that they go to other Gentiles to learn Torah. That's a mistake. And the Gentile has to come to the Jewish
Right.
So it says in Zechariah. The problem Noachites get into, this is when they get into a lot of trouble, they start, instead of going to rabbis and only Torah with rabbis, what do they do? They go and they study from others. That's not the only one way. Why does 10 Gentiles come to Jews and say, take us where we got to go to the message? The message is, you have to go to the Jewish people and Torah. It doesn't mean that the Gentiles can't teach each other. What Hashem wants is he wants the Gentiles to go to the Jews.
Okay, Rabbi. I remember the question, and I think it's a very important one I want to get out tonight before we get you off here. Please, real quickly, if you could cover 2 points, at least 2 points of the Passover.
Please put this one. This will take a moment because I'm just doing it right. Thank you. Okay. So everybody just put on hold. I just need to put place my I'm going to put this down. Give me a second.
Okay.
Oh, dedicated man.
I'm telling you.
Yes, he's getting on his seat. He's trying to get a seat.
That's funny.
Yeah, he's still talking.
So we got to get this last question out quickly then. That's funny. If it was me, they'd have me in cuffs. Sir, I told you to put the phone down. I know, right? Yeah, it sound like. I want him to real quickly touch base on the Passover issue. Passover, how its relation to being a sin sacrifice. Easter, Passover, right?
That's not a quick.
Yeah, I know. Well, you can point out a lot of problems really quick with it. May not be able to answer them though, right? In a very short setting, but.
Have you caught him on Jono Bandor?
Yes.
He is an excellent addition.
Yeah, he's kind of funny too. His voice does not match his picture at all. Not even close.
Yeah, my seat is over here. If I sit here with my
Where would I go?
here,
I don't want to sit in the middle.
you know what I said?
Who would want to sit in the middle? So I'm going to sit here. But if you find me another aisle seat, I'll be very happy. Easy middle. Yeah. All right. We'll see each other soon.
But tienes a su mano.
I made the mistake one time of sitting over the motor. That was the most miserable. I plugged my ears. I tried singing, and well, that didn't last long. But it's still, nothing worked. It was so loud. Yeah, I did. Well, let me try to reconnect again. If it doesn't, that's okay. Hold while we try to call back. Okay. All right.
In the middle, that's it.
I don't care about the middle, but I'm just worried about the
Okay, so here it is. The answer is, look at the Bible, that's the answer. I hope I still have you there.
Yeah,
The answer is, what does the say? The Bible says, Exodus 12. Not only is it not the sin sacrifice, I spoke about this extensively ago, the purpose of the Passover lamb was simple. And that is, what do you want to do? You sit there?
He is devoted, isn't he?
Hang on a second.
Wow.
Hang on a second. Hang on.
Like, tell the pilot, just wait 5 more minutes. We'll take off when I'm done.
No, we're going to be good. We're going to be good. We're going to be good. Okay, so here's the key. Okay. The Passover sacrifice, Jesus should have been compared to a Yom Kippur sacrifice, because that was for sin.
Right.
Yes.
Passover sacrifice is a sacrifice for something that actually could never be done. And that is, what's the Passover sacrifice? Passover sacrifice is that because, look, listen very carefully, the lamb, yes, absolutely, the lamb is the god of Egypt. That's right, if you look back in Exodus chapter 8, you'll see there, that what does the Bible say? Scripture tells us that when Pharaoh asked Moses, why don't you bring your sacrifices here in Egypt? Why don't you do that? Bring it here. Well, no problem. So what did Moses respond? He says, are you crazy? If we're going to sacrifice these animals, these are your gods, you'll kill us. Right? Right?
Okay.
Okay. So that's what's really happening here. What's going on here is the Passover lamb is a god of the Egyptians.
Whoa, my gosh. I never heard that before. That's cool.
That is,
Wow.
that is to show that they actually have faith. That
Oh my gosh.
Of Egypt, So if you brought the Passover lamb, it wasn't for sin, it was for righteousness. You showed that you were righteous. It was the exact opposite.
Okay, so what message is that painting? What's really being passed on as a message when a person celebrates Passover with JC being the Passover sacrifice? What are they really saying based on that historic truth?
Okay, you gotta go back again to chapter under 2. Here's the key. You notice something very odd in Genesis 22. Genesis 22, Isaac asks Abraham, I see the fire rules of sacrifice. Okay? Remember that?
Yes.
What is Abraham's response? It's something very odd. What does he say? He said, God will show you what? A lamb. Right?
Okay.
He says, show you what? Actually, what does he actually find in the bushes? Is it a lamb or a ram?
A ram.
Oh, now a lamb and a ram are the same species. But it's a different word. What is happening here? The Torah is very careful. What's happening is Abraham showed that he was able to be faithful. What's happening is that in generations later, specifically 400 years later, Abraham's descendants will be called upon to take the same risk that Abraham did. And that is, in Egypt, it was a crime where you can be killed if you slaughtered a ram. It was a god. So therefore, this is what I want you to do, okay? I want you to take the animal, kill it, but don't do it hiding. I want you to put blood on the outside of the doorpost so everyone can see.
Oh.
Therefore, it's a test. Test is, does your fear of God exceed that fear of what you see in front of you? The answer is, if you're willing to do that, that means you're worthy to be the nation of Israel. That's what's really going on. But you have to understand, so that's why he said that God will show you the lamb, but then there's a ram. But he's saying that, because this was Abraham's conundrum. Let's go back to Genesis 15. I'll show you something unbelievable in verse 8. God says to him, I see you have faith, I count it for righteousness, and from you is going to come a great seed and a great nation. Abraham asked God a question. Does anyone know the question that Abraham asked God?
Come over here, Mama.
Somebody tell me, I'll be very impressed.
By how do I know I will receive this? Something along those lines.
Hey, right. But Ma'eda, how the heck am I going to know this? Now, could anyone in this room say, why would Abraham ask that? Abraham trusted him on everything. What was he asking him? What do you mean, how do I know? I don't believe you? What is the question? This is what no one gets. But Ma'eda, this is very deep. You got to listen very carefully. Right? Abraham can't be asking, how do I know I can trust him? Because Abraham is willing to do anything for him. What is he asking? Now, listen very carefully with all your brains, and you'll be a new person. What Abraham is asking is a very logical question. God just said that the reason you're going to have children is because I see that you trusted me every step of the way and been faithful to me. Therefore, out of you will come an eternal seed. Okay? Got that? Got it?
Yeah.
Abraham has now a massive conundrum because Judaism has to make sense. So he's going to Ma'eda, which means how do I know that, okay, you told me I'm righteous, but how do I know my children are going to be righteous? That was the question. With Ma'eda, which means with what can I know that future generations to whom you're going to give this promise, they will continue in my way. How will I know that? That was the question. It's not, I don't believe you. Don't believe me. Abraham walked away from everything. No one gets what he's asking. The Lord is a very strange linguistic construct. He's saying, with what can I know that I can have children? Because faithfulness and righteousness is not inherited. That was the conundrum. And that's what's addressed in 22. It will be those children who will be my servants. That's why you look at Isaiah 49:1, verse 8 and 9, you'll see there that it says that who is the servant? The ones who like Abraham, my friend. Now it all makes sense. If you are God's servant, Isaiah 41:8 and 9, who is the servant? The servant is Israel. The seed of Abraham, my friend. What does that have to do with it? Meaning you obey the servant of God, the righteous remnant, what the Christians all say is Israel, is Jesus, I don't agree. But why is there this connection to the servant and Abraham in Isaiah 41 verse 8. Now we get it. What happens is Abraham says, God's going to show you a lamb. We get a ram. There's no reason. The reason is that those who eventually, 400 years later, are going to demonstrate the same kind of order spiritual fortitude that Abraham will, are going to be the ones who are worthy and redeemed. So therefore, the Passover lamb is, in fact, not only not a sin offering, it's a righteous offering. Get it? And that's what's so crazy about it. And if you look at it, go back to Ezekiel 45, verse 19, 20, 21, and 22, the Messiah, the prince, and that's what the Messiah is called. It's called the prince. David will be a prince, right? Ezekiel 37, verse 25, Ezekiel 34, 25. That's what he's called. It's called the prince. It says that the Messiah is going to bring the Passover offering. Why would Jesus be the Passover offering? I thought he is the Passover offering. I'm not making this up. Look it up in the Christian Bible. It's right there.
Very good.
Because it's so huge. You see, let me explain to you. It's, to be a dentist, you have to study all of pre-med, you have to do chemistry. It's one body. It's a symphony. There's no cacophony. There's no dissonance. Everything comes together delicious when it's Torah and when it's true. See, I took a text here, I took a text there, I took a text there, and it comes together. All you want to do is just drop down to your knees and just back down to Hashem. Do you understand what I'm saying? You see how Torah is? Then you look at Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and what do you have? Noise, idolatry, filth, excrement. That's what it is. It's not just a false religion. It actually takes something true and makes something solid out of it. That's why Christianity is such an evil religion. It's worse than Hinduism. It's worse than Buddhism. Why? You know why it's worse? Let me explain to you this. The Torah says the Ten Commandments, I know the Lord your God, I shall take certain together, you took me some money. I put in a royal bondage, right? That's what makes sense, yes?
Yes.
Right?
Yes, sir.
Notice, notice this, this is what I want you to notice. What is the first thing God says don't do? You know what it says?
Don't make any images. Right.
It doesn't say don't worship statues.
Right.
Listen to this. The worst thing you can do is the next passage, and that is, do not have any other God on my face. On my face. Usually translated before me, but that's just on my face. What does it on my face mean? What kind of if you notice the next passage is talking about idols, stones and statues. That's not as bad. Hindu is not as bad as Christian. Christianity is the worst thing. Why? Because all Christians believe in Father. They really are married to God. They believe God created the universe. Every Christian does. That means you're married. Which is worse, to have premarital sex or just sleep around? Or to be married and have a girlfriend on the side? To be married and have a boyfriend on the side? So God is saying, let me explain this to you. Look, before we even go to sleeping around, one thing to get very straight. If you're going to worship me, that means you're married to me. That means we have our own bridal chamber. It's just you and me. Intimacy is you and me. Don't you dare bring another chick into this room. Don't you dare have a boyfriend.
Right.
Okay. So, that's key, okay? You talk, I can't talk.
Okay, no problem. Is there any thoughts, closing comments? I think he's fixing to have to sign off.
Thank you so much, Tovia.
Rabbi, we really appreciate your dedication and you're making yourself available even at this time of being boarded and threatened to get kicked off the plane. So, yeah, we love you, but thank you, appreciate you, and...
Jono, really enjoying you on Jono's show.
Okay, one says he's really enjoying hearing you on Jono's show, and I think we can all agree we all enjoy hearing you anywhere we can get you. So, Rabbi, have a safe flight. Thank you again so much. And I've been recording this, so I'll try to get this up online so you can have some reflection. So, shalom to you, and we will see you in Houston on Saturday night.
Shalom.
Bye.